Hello and welcome to Editing with My Wife, now with upcoming changes. My name's the Hooded Philosopher and I'm here with Cheesy Loops. Cheesy Loops, what's up?
We get to say goodbye to some friends.
You had a busy day today.
I did. It was my day off.
A day off and you went into work for 4 hours.
Well, so I went to a meeting for management, and that was kind of planned, and I get fed. So I get to sit there, get free food, and listen to the district manager talk about things that I don't fully understand. But some of the information's good, so I listen. And, but there was some stuff at the store that didn't get done, and my boss asked me if I would just come in because she knows I'd get it done quicker. And
like the angel you are,
I went in
and then finished the 10-minute job and stayed for another 2 or 3.
No, my official clock-in time for the at the store work was 1 hour and 14 minutes.
It just felt like 4 hours being away from you.
It did. It felt too long. But I figured since I was there today, I'd get my order taken care of so my boss doesn't have to worry about that. And I don't know. I guess I have a question of the day early before we start reading.
Why not?
See, especially since you're on the wrong screen again.
I think we're just going to do this from now on.
Okay.
And end with that.
Okay. Which is, when someone is struggling to learn an aspect of your job that's highly important to do, especially when they're by themselves, and you've thought of every possible way to show them how to do it.
That you know how.
That you know how.
You've attempted and attempted and attempted.
And then you try to come up with other clever ways to help them through it. And they still don't get it.
And they know they don't get it. That's what I keep getting from you. She says she doesn't get it.
She says she doesn't understand it. She doesn't know what to do. And she gets really stressed out when she gets left alone. And we don't have a lot of by-yourself shifts that she could... Or non-by-yourself shifts.
And I want you all to know, this concern is coming from the assistant manager.
Like, do I continue to try to help her? Or do we say, this may not be a good fit for you?
What does your boss say?
She says, in not so nice terms, she probably should move on.
Let's not go too far, but yeah.
It's not horrible. She doesn't say mean things. It's just
no. Your boss is as gentle and sweet as you are.
Yeah, but she says she needs to go.
Yeah, I just got to figure it out for her. I don't envy her task. I've been through it. I'm still going through it technically.
And I just don't know how more I can help her. I've given her all the tips I knew how to do myself, and then I've even come up with a couple of things that I didn't ever think I needed to think of to try to help. And it still is a major problem. Granted, it is lottery, and lottery is very confusing. But, like, what should have been a 30-minute day turned into an hour because people were coming in. It got busy.
It just got too much for her.
And
other of the employees could have done it.
And like,
but she knows she can.
5 of those people were big lottery.
Is there any way she's listening to this?
No.
It's highly unlikely.
It's very highly unlikely.
You didn't say anything about this to her, so she's fully aware of it. And if you are listening, we love you. This is coming from a place of love, right?
Yeah,
you want
it
to
is.
help,
I want to help, and
you can't figure it out.
And it doesn't help that, like, my obvious frustration is on my face and in my actions, and I'm trying to make sure that, customers leave happy and not frustrated themselves because... You
know who's really frustrated?
Her.
No.
Who?
Nathaniel. Sloan killed his entire family in the blink of an eye in a horrible, gruesome way right in front of him. And now he is heading to a mountain to slay him.
I get it. Let's read the story.
It's just a transition. You were going to keep going, and I understand that, but I think that the point was made, and any further talking would just... sad.
So, Nathaniel was at the base of Impossible Peak. He looked at the towering mountain in front of him. All around the entirety of the mountain, there were arcane creatures. They seemed to be coordinating in an unnatural way. Sorry, burps. This is where I say goodbye, Draylen said mournfully, his hands moving to explain it to the boy, too. What do you mean? Nathaniel said, shocked. The boy's hands echoed his father's words. All those years ago, when I was pulled into this world and ripped out of my own, the arcane divine told me the way back was to follow the arcane beasts to their home. I think for me, it's going to send me home. He raised his head to look at the arcane beasts crowded around the peak. The sounds of ringing glass filled the sky, a discordant orchestra ringing out to their god, a being of pure incomprehensibility. Nathaniel stared at the stranger he called a friend, the thought of going home showing on his face with tears rolling down his cheeks. Let's get you home, Nathaniel encouraged, resting a hand on his shoulder. Sloane's not going to make it easy, but we already killed so many of him, maybe we're really not in any danger. This made Draylen laugh audibly. Nathaniel followed suit, adding, For all we know, we already killed him. The boy stared at the pair of them, his back to the mountain. He saw the lone figure walking toward them, the wind whipping the snow around them into a flurry. He pointed at it. The person was taking a drink when the wind whipped around him, lifting him into the air. I am Sloane the Divine, the wind began carrying him toward the fore. Tresca had been keeping quiet, deciding on how to best vacate the area. She looked at the boy. He had pulled out Twist, getting ready for the fight. Tresca walked over to him quickly and handed him 2 small bottles of liquid. She handed them to him and pressed on the rune that took her home, where she would wait for the red light that told her the fighting was be done.
Well, maybe the thing was to be done. I don't know.
Told her when the fighting was done.
Yeah, I'm gonna go fix that out.
Here, let your mouse work.
That's right.
The boy looked around to see the vial of mine. Looked down to see the vial of mine. So he put them in his pocket and took a deep breath. Sloane was upon them. Nathaniel removed Lion Tamer from its sheath. The power began to excite him and supercharge his muscles, rolling around in his spirit, igniting his rage. He ate 3 of his creation pills. Suddenly, there were 2 massive horned creatures and a rather unseasonably large furry creature that bounded around the boy on all 4s. Draylen took out a flask and swallowed a giant gulp of stone wine. The rocks began covering him until he was gone, the stones protecting him like an armor. Inside the rocks, Draylen took some powder of creation. A small arcane creature jumped down from the mountain. At your command, Draylen, it said in a single ringing sound. Sloane laughed at the display of heroes. You really think your beasts can stand up to me? He swung his hands at the horned creatures. One of them split open, white dust spraying everywhere. The other dashed aside, avoiding the deadly sickle of air. Stop him! Take his magic, Draylen commanded to the arcane minion. It rose high into the air and shot after Draylen with deadly intent. Sloane reacted, dodging the attack and consuming a heartstring in the process. He reached out with his hand and touched the minion. The heartstring stretched out deep into the heart of the minion. Protect me, he shouted, hiding behind it as the second beast charged him, momentum building. The arcane creature stretched out a glimmering appendage. The beast ran into it, and it exploded into a shower of butterflies. Damn it, Draylen said, dismissing his minion, and began shooting rocks toward Sloane as Nathaniel and the boy got into a flanking position. Sloane brushed aside the rocks with a hand motion and turned to face Nathaniel. Step back, fool. Step back, fool. You do not know what you are doing. Fool. He flew toward Nathaniel rapidly, so fast Nathaniel was caught off guard. The boy was too far away from him to help, and Draylen was busy underneath his earthen shell. The furry beast leapt into Nathaniel and took the blow for him. Your beasts are smarter than you, Sloane said, as he turned around to a hammer that came down on his left shoulder. Sloane laughed through the pain. Nathaniel stood up, dissummoning his beasts, and put the tip of Lion Tamer into Sloane's chest. The boy raised the hammer, aiming for a leg bone, Sloane reached up and touched a rune on the front of the crown that clung to his head. Nearly instantly, the crown covered him in gold. The hammer rebounded off it, hitting the boy in the leg instead. He fell to the ground, holding his hammer out in front of him. Sloane took advantage and scrambled on the snowy ground, his metal making him extra slippery. However, with the aid of the wind, he slipped off into the nearby hills. He needed to heal his wounds. Nathaniel ran up to the boy with his hand out. The boy stood up, saying with his hands, "I'm fine. It just got my shins." Hydration. Important. He put the hammer on his shoulder and began walking towards Sloane's last known location. Draylen was atop a boulder, a swirl of stones propelling him towards Sloane. Nathaniel ran ahead, taking a sip of every... Ooh, buddy boy. Nathaniel ran ahead, taking a sip of a very potent alcohol mixed with a vial of mine. He reached out his hand and stopped. The boy reached out with his hand to meet Nathaniel's. When contact was made, the boy was running just behind Draylen. Nathaniel found his footing and leaped high into the air. The arcane light surrounded him, pulling him even higher. He pointed at the ground, and as he began his descent, he saw Draylen launching heavy stones at Sloane, who was sweeping them away with one hand. With the other, he put something in his mouth. Air began to whirl around him then burst outwards, knocking Draylen and the boy to the ground. Nathaniel pushed a rune on Lion Tamer. A bolt of lightning struck the ground in front of Sloane, knocking him back. Inside the blinding light of the bolt, Nathaniel appeared, his blade coming down on Sloane's right arm, cutting deep into his forearm. Sloane reached over with his other arm and grabbed the blade away from Nathaniel. He broke it in half and tossed it aside. The wounds on Sloane regenerating rapidly, and he rose high into the air with a burst of wind, taking off to the far east.
Coward.
Very much so. Draylen followed after him atop a massive boulder, the boy on the boulder next to him. Nathaniel leapt supernaturally high, arcane light pushing him further into the sky, the sun growing quite bright. He saw where Sloane was headed. So did Draylen, whose boulder began changing directions to Nathaniel's home. Nathaniel was standing on the entryway to his home, the small blue brick structure that he would take people into to get to his home. An ominous entrance to the needless massacre of all those he loved. This was where Sloane was coming, the place that he ripped away Nathaniel's family for reasons that only Sloane the monster could ever divine. "This is how I did it," Sloane said, hovering above the small building, holding a small orange bottle of pills with a white twist-off cap. On the label it said antipsychotic. He tossed it down at Nathaniel. "When you take one of these, it twists the magic. Lets you break the rules with yet more rules. I can enter any home I want to but my own." He laughed. Draylen and the boy landed on the ground before the boulder came crashing down on Sloane. He disappeared, swapping with Draylen. Sloane grabbed the boy and threw him into the mess the boulder made of the building. Draylen stopped it just before it crushed him, and with the last of his power he shot the boulder high into the air. As it disappeared in the atmosphere of the planet, Sloane ran to them, stabbing Draylen in the chest and pulling the knife down, leaving a massive wound on their friend. Draylen looked to the boy who swung at Sloane's head. Twist connected, hitting Sloane on the head. Letting out a ring as the head of the hammer contacted the crown. Sloane hit the ground, holding his head, laughing. Nathaniel then looked to Draylen and grabbed his hand, looked at his friend in the eye. "Send me home to the mountain," Draylen begged in a gasp. Nathaniel put his hand over the wound, and it filled with light. When Nathaniel's hands moved, the light faded into the wound. The light faded. The wound was not bleeding and seemingly frozen in time. Mouse is not working. "Go home, Draylen. The legend of another world," Nathaniel said, teleporting him to the top of the mountain, where the arcane forces returned him home, hopefully whole and safe. Nathaniel looked at the boy. The boy ate a heartstring and chased it with a swig of fire liquor. The head of his hammer caught with raging flames, as hot as the end of the endless sands. He brought it down on the right shoulder. This time, the contact obliterated Sloane's shoulder, severing his arm from his body. Sloane stood up laughing. Nathaniel was close enough for Sloane to grab him with his good arm. Huh. Okay. Sorry, I got distracted by a thought. Let's go home, Nathaniel. Sloane and Nathaniel disappeared into the sky over the lake. A confused bird was flapping on the ground in front of the boy. The bird kicked up a lot of dust, and when the boy looked up to where they were, he was suddenly alone. Nathaniel, on the other hand, was standing in an empty white void they knew as home. It was filled with the blood-stained furniture and frozen memories. Memories Nathaniel had been avoiding. The memories haunted Nathaniel in this space. Sloane sat on a bench, a gaping, semi-cauterized wound still bleeding on the grass below him. I am a healer, he explained as he placed some brown shredded life leaf in his mouth.
That's an old name.
That is an old name. The arm began scarring over and healing. That arm isn't going to grow back, he said as he chewed. Nathaniel remembers the children. He raised all those wonderful memories, and he said aloud, "Why did I ever want to forget these memories?" He collapsed on the ground in a heartbreak of memories. The gentle voice of a young man, a voice that was familiar. "Dad, don't get lost in here. He brought you in here to distract you. Hurry, the world needs you to stop him." Nathaniel stood up and walked over, sat on the bench next to Sloane. "Why did you insist on taking our children?" The effect of the massive wound was making Sloane lose awareness. Nathaniel nudged him and repeated himself. "Why the children?" he shouted, his awareness slipping a bit himself. "I needed to propel this world into a magical digital age, something your piddly little mind can't quite grasp. And I did it." He took a deep breath and looked at Nathaniel in his eyes. "You're all connected telepathically. There's a home for every person. Food is abundant. And there's an endless supply of my magic drugs all over the world." "What the hell is a drug?" Nathaniel asked, the word coming to him slowly. "On my world, the substances we use for our magic do not give us magic. Instead, they simply alter your sense of self and sense of reality. It is an understood chemical process." He was gasping for air now. "Draylen was also from another world, a different one than you. I sent him to the arcane beings. They took him home. I don't think they will do that for you, though," Nathaniel said flatly. "Just drop me into the lake. I don't want to go home. It's broken and structured against the people. Here we have a world of magic, and I brought it to them. I wish to remain. I don't mind being forgotten." The tears in Sloane's eyes spoke of the fear of death all of us have in the end. Nathaniel put his hand on Sloane's knee and dropped themselves back into the real world. They began to fall towards the lake, getting ever closer to swallowing them. While Sloane's body hit the water, disappearing beneath its glassy surface, Nathaniel's clothes froze, holding him in place, mid-air. He watched Sloane sink into the depths as Tresca was floating in the slip ring above the lake near where they were. The clothes on Nathaniel's back gently carried him to the slip ring and put his unconscious body gently in the back, sitting up. Nathaniel flopped back as Tresca engaged the ring, guiding it back to shore. Sorry, that one part that I was like, I stalled at was because...
Where?
It was because I forgot he cut into his arm, but he didn't cut it off.
No, the hammer obliterated his shoulder.
Yes.
It went boop.
Yes.
It cut his arm off, technically, but it really smashed his shoulder away.
Earlier, Nathaniel swings his sword and gets it into his arm.
Yeah.
But I was like, wait, how does he have a good arm if both his arms are cut off?
It was the same arm.
It was the same arm. And so my brain was thinking he had two cut off arms.
I think that Nathaniel wasn't sitting anywhere before he went to the bench. So we can just get rid of that. Nathaniel sat on the bench next to Sloane.
What do you mean? What did it say before?
He stood up, walked over.
He was on the ground. He collapsed on the ground in a heartbreak of memories.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So no, he wasn't sitting anywhere. He got up off the ground. Mm-hmm. No, that's okay. You can still take it out.
Oh, bitch.
No, don't put
Hold
bench.
on.
Wee. Our puppy is so cute. I love her so much. Here she is. Whoop.
I think that was what I looked at. So in this chapter, we find ourselves at the beginning of Mount Impossible.
Yeah, the Impossible Peak. Which, you never explain why it's Impossible Peak in the story.
No, I do. He moved the mountain, and then when Draylen's flying over the world, he mentions that was the mountain. You see that particular mountain.
Yeah. Sloane cut a mountain in half.
That's where the school resided. It resided, well, his main campus resided in the crater that was left by the impossibly large mountain that he moved over to the area where the arcane beasts were to hold them back so they couldn't enter a world or whatever. It came out of like a magic source.
Yeah.
Like a little lake over there, and he just put the mountain on a lake.
Would you say it was as big as Everest or not quite that big?
It's impossibly big. Everest is tiny. It's huge.
Everest is tiny in comparison?
Okay. There are bigger mountains than Everest. Everest just goes the highest.
Oh, I see.
So there are mountains at a lower point that go high around that height, and technically they're bigger.
Oh.
So Everest is just the highest. It's not the biggest.
I see.
Yeah, which I don't know all the statistics. I've heard that a couple times now on the various YouTubes.
Well, seeing as how that was my frame of reference, it is bigger than Everest.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
The thought is that if it were on this planet and it were spinning, it would like spin the planet funny.
I see.
It's impossibly big, and the reason why is because this planet is not. It's moving.
Oh.
It's moving and it's not rotating. It's not rotating around a sun. The sun isn't moving. Mm-hmm. And so there's this weird, impossibly high thing that was. I mean,
I think
that the epilogue is the questions for the things like that, because there are a lot I could say about that.
My point is that Sloane, through magic, cut the mountain in half, lifted it up in the air, and not in half.
He ripped it out of the ground. Whatever he did, it left a crater.
Yeah, okay.
It went from high to below.
Yes.
The landscape.
And then moved an entire mountain. Mm-hmm. That is the scope of the magic that only Sloane is tapped into.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
He gets to at the end here. Mm-hmm. He talks about the antipsychotics.
Yes.
And the idea is that for every drug that gives you power, there is an antipsychotic that changes your personality. Yes. But when it changes your personality, it changes the effect of the magic. So when Sloane had the ability with his personality, he took the pill, and instead of the home opening, what does his power do for home?
I don't know what his power does for
Instead of being able to communicate with dead people, he could open home, but it was never his. It twists the magic.
Okay.
In a very complex and confusing way. And I think that if you were to tell other stories about this, that's rife with complicated concepts. And
yes.
Just all sorts of different things, because it's big and complicated. No, my next story is not this. It's not big and complicated.
Yeah.
Unless we write that one character story. And it's huge and very complicated. The biggest and most complicated thing I can imagine.
What was another part I got a little stuck at that... I think this one was written very well.
And it's one of my older, too.
I think it's funny. It doesn't recognize rune as a word, but it's
like it's not the right place for that word.
See, it's not a misspelling. Yeah, it's grammar.
That's what I'm saying. It's the placement, too. They can be like, that's not the right place for rune.
But... when you right-click on it, it says run.
Yeah, it does. It tries to change it to run.
It tries to change it to run.
He touched a run on the front of the crown, which actually makes sense. That would mean like a line that comes down the front. But that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah.
Cutting deep into his forearm. So yeah, he didn't cut it off, but my brain was thinking... Yeah, my brain was thinking he cut it off.
I mean, he could have, because then he smashes the hammer, but
Yeah.
and boy does.
And Draylen going home.
Yeah.
And nobody knowing if he actually made it.
Yeah. Well, that answer will happen if I ever write the book that is very important to me, the one that I've been working on for almost a decade now.
It's not just a book.
It's a series of books. It's a very big, complicated world with very specific magic rules. It's like I'm trying to hit Tolkien level of complexity in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not ready for it. I don't know if I'll ever be. I might die with this going to my grave, but who knows?
I'll have heard it.
Yeah, you know about it, I guess.
It's wonderful. We've even spent time trying to figure out stuff, and
I absolutely love talking about that other world that nobody else knows about.
But that's the other world that Draylen is from that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what happens to him when he goes back. So.
It's funny, Nathaniel ran up to the boy with his hand out, and the boy stood up saying with his hands, "I'm fine, just got my shins." It almost feels like, a little bit from the boy, that he's like a little embarrassed.
Yeah. I mean, how was he supposed to know Sloane could cover himself in metal?
Right. He's a little embarrassed and a little frustrated with himself, and he's just like, I'm fine. Like, it's cute.
Mm-hmm.
But
the weirdest part of all is that it died with him. That knowledge, everything about that, died with him because... Well, that's not true, is it?
No, because Nathaniel has the bottle.
And somebody else came with them. She has an aunt. He has an aunt.
Oh, yes.
She knows about that stuff.
Yes.
And, well, I guess I gotta wait for the epilogue. There's stuff I gotta say that... When the book is finished, that's when I should say the things I want to say. Mm-hmm. This is not the time. So... I
love Draylen's title. He only gets to hear it once. Mm-hmm. The Legend of Another World. Yeah.
But people will remember him.
Yes.
He's going to be going down in history. He's got several places named after.
He was getting to magic levels close to Sloane.
He was over 9,000.
Oh my gosh.
And what about the ending? I went from this like really fun fight scene to this like two of them sitting in a horror film talking about everything that's going on.
Only problem I see with this scene.
I mean, Sloane has his arm missing, so he can just give up.
I mean, he's got to be exhausted. He used so much magic.
And it's amazing the arcane beasts didn't get more involved. But they wouldn't.
He's used so much magic. He's been running, and he's a coward and keeps running, but that's got to take a ton of energy to be able to try to
And then he's wounded a lot, and he's trying to heal from it, but he keeps getting wounded.
Yeah.
And he can barely touch them.
Yeah.
He's basically just a punching doll for most of it. And then at the end he gets that good shot on Draylen. And kind of distracts them for a sec, but it doesn't really save him.
But the only problem I see with this whole scene...
He hit Draylen. What happened first? Him hitting Draylen or the boy ripping his arm off? You know? I thought it was rather poignant that he swung the hammer and ripped the arm off of his own father because he tried to kill Draylen.
Mm-hmm. So did that happen first?
I think so.
I
I don't think he attacked after his arm got ripped off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the boy was pissed at his dad. But then later in the scene here, he calls Nathaniel dad.
Mm-hmm.
And says, "We're not even playing this game anymore. That's not my father."
Yeah.
Never was.
Hold on, I'm trying to figure it out.
Because the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb.
Yeah, he did it after. Okay. So problem I have with the scene at home is, yes, it's a big massacre in here. This is the third time Nathaniel's home has been opened. What happened the second time? And why is it not appeared here?
The Seed of Chaos.
The Seed of Chaos got rid of it?
Oh, yeah. The reason why the Seed of Chaos wasn't there, though?
Is because of...
Grimm.
Because of
Sloane.
Nail.
Nail, who is Sloane.
Who is
that has already been
named
revealed.
Sloane.
Her name is Sloane, spelled differently, and that's his aunt.
That's the boy's aunt.
We can do some kind of basic math and understand that she must be from the other world as well. So there's still a human running around.
Yes.
And...
Well, a modern-day human.
A modern-day human that we understand as human, yeah.
Because everybody else is human, too.
At the same time as... Yeah, true. A human earthling. Because those people aren't earthlings anymore. Whatever that planet's called, they're called that now.
Yeah, because they were born there.
They all live their lives there. Except for the people who...
So, the Seed of Chaos destroyed whatever went in there.
Oh, yeah.
Or probably...
Look at what it did to the other thing. It's pure chaos.
Or probably stored it away for use for later.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Maybe.
Okay. And then, I think this comes from a time when you were saying the Lake of the Forgotten, or what the lake was called. He wants to be forgotten. Yeah. But he's not in the next chapter. Wouldn't he be forgotten instantaneously entering the lake?
The lake isn't magic.
Okay.
The world itself isn't magic. It's technological, actually.
He says, I wish to remain. I don't mind being forgotten.
Yeah.
Why would Sloane say, I don't mind being forgotten?
Because he would rather be forgotten than back to his world to live his life out.
Okay.
Be forgotten here. Then go over there and be remembered.
I see.
Yeah. Because, like some people here in modern day, we're a little unhappy with the way the world is running. Mm-hmm. And there are other places that sound better. Well, I have imagined at least 5 now.
Think about what he says. You're all connected telepathically. There's a home for every person. Mm-hmm. Food is abundant. 2 things in this sentence are vital for human survival: shelter and food.
It's like he brought advanced technology to the world, is what he did. Yeah. With the invention of these drugs. He can't even explain it to Nathaniel because Nathaniel doesn't know his world. Mm-hmm. Completely different. Yeah.
But there were 2 goals in his mind, which was to feed everybody and house everybody. And with these drugs, they did that. I mean, when he came in, that wasn't his goal. His goal was to figure out what the heck he was doing. But eventually it became that.
He's so cute. Yeah.
Just drop me a link. I don't want to go home. It is broken and structured against the people. I brought it to them.
Oh no, babe, I know.
I feel like that was the only 2 bits, because I remember when you were first coming up with this, that lake was magical. I feel like in a way.
No, none of the landscape was intentionally magical.
Okay.
None of it from the beginning. Okay. It's actually, if anything, more technologically messed with than magically. Oddly enough.
That's okay. I don't know why I had that thought.
Maybe I did back then, but things change.
No, things do change.
And it's just... I think it was an apt thing for him to say at the end, too. I don't mind being forgotten, going into the Lake of the Forgotten Lake. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Recap?
No, I think that is the recap, that we just did it. Why are we trying to worry about that? Is there any purpose to doing that, or is it just extending the podcast?
No, it was so that way people knew what happened last time. That was our original intent.
Yeah, we're reiterating too much, I think. It's 30 minutes.
Okay.
You know, we could talk about how Sloane didn't want to learn his message too.
Sloane didn't want to learn.
Like, people were yelling for him to change. And he did he know what he was doing was wrong? I think he did.
I think there's a small part of him who believes that he did was wrong, but the insanity that stemmed from the magic kept wanting to keep his original... Like, it took his original message and kept morphing how to come about that, which is educate the children. Mm-hmm. Protect everybody. Make sure they're fed. Make sure they're comfortable. You know.
And he says it here, he succeeded.
Yes.
He knows that. And the reason why is because he did. And if there's another book about this, amazing things are going to come from what Sloane has done. Like, yes. Incredible things. Things that are beyond reality.
Like, Sloane is a bad guy only because of...
His obstinance in the end.
Yes.
He was just choosing to do the wrong thing. And I don't
the
know.
allowance of the experimentation on children.
Remember what I said, though. He knew what he was doing. He figured something out.
Mm.
It's just, he doesn't get to see it. Unless he somehow escapes the lake.
Which, it's hard to swim with a
Broken arm, with a missing arm.
missing arm that's...
I mean, it's possible. You
in
can do it with just
pain.
your feet. But he was dying.
He was exhausted. He was barely holding consciousness. Yeah. Well, I guess is that where we're ending it?
Yes, that's a great idea. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I was reading that last little bit. And we love you.
Bye.
Yeah, give us your stories, too. Give us your comments. Link us to Wattpad of stories you'd like us to read.
Or anyway,
we're down. We're down. I think what we're going to try and do is do my books and another person's book at the same time.
Which is not too bad. 30 minutes isn't too bad.
Yeah, especially if we keep it short. Thanks for listening. We love you. Bye.